And we are live. So,
Yes.
welcome to episode 202 of An American Werewolf in New Jersey. I am the American Werewolf. In the house, not tonight, but today, we've got Baron Von D from the... Okay, wait a minute.
Where Exorcist Reviews.
Okay, yeah, from Exorcist Reviews. Excuse me, I had a tab with my YouTube thing open, so all of a sudden I started to hear myself. And while, admittedly, I don't mind hearing myself from time to time, one right on top of the other is a bit rich. So we've got, once again, Baron Von D from Exorcist Reviews. Thank you for taking a little time to shoot the breeze.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, bro. You and I were just going back and forth in the comments with some reviews that I was posting in the lead up to The Exorcist Believer.
Right.
So I had several months worth of videos, as some relevant news came out here and there. I wasn't necessarily fixating on it, but I was curious. And, you were always in there in the comments, and so I appreciate that. Just generating some conversation, which that's what all of this is about.
Sure.
The Exorcist reviews aside, it's been a hell of a year for possession movies. There have been some kind of big titles out there, some small titles, some mega titles, back and forth, and we're almost at Halloween. So I thought that it might be a good time to do a sort of year in review for possession flicks. So I would appreciate you taking the time to join me for this. And I guess if you're ready to go, shall we get it going?
Yeah, let's do it.
Boogie woogie. So before we delve, tell us a little bit about your channel, what you're focusing on, where people can find you, and I'll put the link to the description in the link to your channel in the description.
Well, basically, I started on YouTube years back, but it was just kind of like a personal channel. It's still up, but I don't really do much with it. And then I started up Alaska After Dark back, I probably want to say 2014. Okay. And that was basically focused on the vampire community.
Okay, I can see that. Okay, yeah.
So I would do interviews with certain people that would allow me to do an interview with them. There's a lot of people out there that are like, they keep that to, that's their personal life.
Sure.
So they don't want to come forth and talk about that. Then we had the Exorcist Fox TV series come out. And basically I lost my shite.
Okay.
I did not. I'm sorry. This show has plenty of fans. I'm sure it does. I didn't like it. I didn't like what they did with it.
Oh,
I did not like what
terrible.
They did with that thing, especially with the whole Chris McNeil thing. And one of the biggest reasons was I was waiting for the miniseries. I wanted to see the Bloody miniseries.
Yeah,
and that's also something I'm working on right now. It's kind of like my pinnacle, so it's been taking a while. I'm still kind of researching as I read along. And it actually it does bring up something. If I can see it from here, I don't see it from here, but there is a script that Cemetery Dance put out.
Okay.
It's called The Exorcist Screenplay for the 21st Century. If you want to know what was going to happen in the show or the miniseries, you'd want to pick that up if you can find it.
Okay. So to be clear, if people are hearing this for the first time in the in the chat or in the replay. Blatty and, if I'm not mistaken, Friedkin were intending, or at least had been discussing, sort of an extended series of the original novel. Have I got this correct?
I think it was more so Blatty than Friedkin. Friedkin was kind of like, I guess he wanted to try it, but then he changed his mind. He was done with Father Karras, basically. Okay. That's the other reason why he didn't really put any effort in doing, from what I understood, putting effort in doing the Legion or Exorcist 3 film. Okay. He didn't want to deal with Father Karras anymore. And he was done with the Exorcist. He wanted to move on, I guess, was the thought.
I could see that. And I mean, it's easy enough to say that the natural conclusion to the storyline ends with the first movie.
Sure.
And so, you can say, firmly that, that story has been closed. I'm a big fan of Legion. And I'm a, pretty good fan of the third movie. I think it's, as horror movies go, it's top notch, I think, pretty well. It's not as good as the original, of course, but I enjoyed it. And, we've discussed it here on the show. But yeah, there was something that Blatty was creating that was, because there is a fair amount of content from the book that's left out of the first film. And I guess he was going to be including a lot of that in this, sort of mini series, which would have been, I'm sure, fantastic to watch.
Right. One interesting thing that I noticed in the miniseries, just reading through the screenplay, was a lot of the things that were happening, say, in Iraq. It was like coinciding along with what was going on in Georgetown. So you don't get that linear sense that, okay, I've got to leave, and then you go to Georgetown. He's still in Iraq, probably about, I want to say first quarter, maybe even the first half, leaving on a train. Wow. And the interesting thing is, you remember the woman, the old woman in the I forget what they call those, in the beginning, in the Iraq scene, in the carriage. Yeah, they had a name for it, but I can't think of it right now. She plays a bigger part.
Oh, okay.
She definitely plays a bigger part. I'll be bringing these up in a video, hopefully. But Marin actually meets her on the train. She's described as like a woman in black, dark complexion with striking pale green eyes. She's smoking. I think she's smoking the same cigarette. If you remember, have you read the 40th anniversary where Blatty incorporated Father Lucas?
No, I think I have an older copy of the maybe a second edition, not a 40th anniversary.
So basically, this woman is kind of like evil, right?
Okay.
And she has a brief conversation with Marin on the train. They're sharing like seats opposite of each other. Then also he's looking out the window, and then he looks over and she's gone. But she also appears in the Chris McNeil party, and the person that notices her is Mary Jo Perrin, the seer, the psychic person.
Okay. Sees
her moving with in the among the people, and then just kind of briefly breaks away, and then she's gone again. So it's like, she's transcending space and time, kind of thing.
Bit of an apparition.
Yeah. Okay. So I thought that was an interesting ad. There's a little bit more paranormal stuff going on in the miniseries than there would be in like what I'm kind of use the whole film as like an outline and a basis. And so there's like items added. So, you get those moments when Chris McNeil's walking by Reagan's room and she's talking to someone that's not in there. And she opens the door. Who are you talking to? And she's like, it's just a game. It's a new game. It's nothing. It's just a new game. And then so there's a moment where Chris looks over to the closet and she sees that the clothes that are hanging there are quivering. Like there's something there.
Pretty cool.
I thought that was kind of
pretty cool.
And you get a lot of the, it almost plays out. Do you remember the film? And I'm going to compare it to this, The Changeling with George C. Scott.
Yeah, we talk about this all the time. I love that film. Yeah, just talking about it.
You remember the shots where it's very like a POV, where the spirit goes up the staircase and moves around. You can hear it moaning.
Sure,
the whole,
sure. It's been about 2 years since I've seen it. Oh yeah, yeah, of course,
like
course,
that,
yeah.
There's a lot of shots like that too. It's
okay.
Usually emitting from the basement, coming back up the stairs into Reagan's room.
I think that it's fair to say at this point now we are at the 50-year anniversary that the only person that probably should have ever been trusted and should be trusted still with any of this sort of content what is Blatty. Blatty or Friedkin, because everything else has just fallen short.
Oh yeah.
And that's the problem with the first movie, is that they got it perfect the first time. And so there's really nowhere to go with The Exorcist. Sure, you can make decent possession movies, and we're going to talk about some of them in a little bit. But the problem with that is that the very first movie, gets it right, and fires on all thrusters 50 years ago. Now, a couple of days ago, we were talking about Rosemary's Baby. That is, the first, sort of, that beats it by 5 years. But in terms of just the possession and all that, there's nowhere really to go. And like you said, or like I was saying, the natural conclusion to the storyline ends in 1973. Right. And it's sort of an uncertain ending. You get the idea that Kinderman and the priests that are that have survived are going to be friends, and Reagan and the family go off towards a certain an uncertain ending. You're cautiously optimistic. But everything, and I'm not saying that some of these haven't been respectful efforts. What Blatty did was obviously, it's his content, so who the hell am I to criticize it? But even what Paul Schrader did in Dominion, and I think he genuinely tried to do something that wasn't just, pea soup flying anywhere. And it doesn't hit. It doesn't hit. It's unfortunate. But tell me just real quick, 2 more minutes. What was now the first season I thought was fantastic of the Fox series. Maybe again you said because you were looking forward to the Blatty series, but I still thought it was fantastic. I didn't catch on. I'm not one of those people who knew it was Kaiser Soze right away. I have a couple of friends that have been that way. Yeah, that's not me. That's not me. So when I found out the Angela twist, I was like, oh shit. And then I thought Sharon Gless did a really fantastic job. It's the closest thing I've seen outside of Blatty's work that seemed to have a respectful nod. The second season just went off the rails because then it just became a, sort of.
It was kind of like its own thing. They might as well have done a show about the Warrens or something.
Oh, the second season or the whole thing?
Well, the second season.
Yeah.
You get like Batman and Robin travel around, kidnap a woman.
Now, that's right. Yeah,
having that happen.
Yeah.
When it started out, when the first season started out, I wanted to like it, but it started with the whole, there's a demon in my house. We didn't get to see any of the activity happening. We didn't get to see the furniture moving. We didn't get to see a lot of things. It was just rushed through. It was just all exposition in that course of time. Why didn't we get to see that? It had its moments. It had some good moments, but then it only had standalone moments. You had that one episode with the bugs, and then it didn't go anywhere. What was the whole thing with the bugs? The bugs on in the bed. And then
the centipedes. All the centipedes.
Yeah, the centipedes. What was that? What was that all about? I didn't understand that.
They were all just kind of. I just think every possession movie for the most part. I mean, you see the spectacle, and the spectacle is for its own sake. And
then there was the whole spectacle.
But I mean, let me just real quick. I enjoyed what the lead up was, because what you saw was that. Again, Gina Davis is catching on too late. There's that one scene where they're filming. She's filming her with the iPad in the dark, and you can hear
that was a good scene.
The voice of Pazuzu. She's standing right behind you, watch. And I'm like, what the, that was, but I mean, most possession movies, even the upper level ones at this point, are largely about the spectacle. They don't capture too much of the faith aspect of things, which I think they did really well with Father Tomas. And Father, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, the Irish priest. I liked him a great deal. But that, Father Tomas was clearly a flawed vessel, still sort of, keeping 1 foot in one door and, 1 foot in the other, in a different kind of way, with that woman that he was, sort of keeping on the side. Yeah, even though she was, I didn't like her as a character. I didn't like her. I thought that she was kind of parasitic. It's like, why are you trying to, bring down a priest? But from his perspective, and that this is the only woman, he's thinking about. I liked it.
I thought it was kind of weird by the time he. Well, let me back up a little bit. For me, it pretty much broke canon. It broke canon in a lot of ways. It goes right back to that whole idea that Chris McNeil writes a book. Mm-hmm. I still don't buy that. The people outside the house. The
PC. Look at these faces, kind of thing.
Well, not just that, because to me the whole show started out when a lot of the woke stuff was going on.
Sure.
It was like just right on the verge, and especially the last episode, one of the last episodes where she's confronting the demon in her head, and then Pazuzu goes, "You can't do this. You're only a woman."
I don't remember it.
See this okay. Where did that come from? And like a lot of I've seen a lot.
Hey, it beats the patriarchy.
Yeah, but it's like, it shouldn't even matter. It's like I don't. To me, Pazuzu wouldn't worry whether you're a man or a woman or anything.
He'd probably use every tool that he probably could against you if you were insecure that way. So I could just write it off the cuff. But of course, it was 2016, and it was just that thing was just about to go into
like the whole Me Too movement thing going on.
Yeah.
To me, it was like, okay,
here's gear yet, but
here's Pazuzu. He's a toxic white male now. Why is he this old man?
Yeah.
It was more effective when you didn't see him.
Yeah, I mean,
you only had the statue. Friedkin was playing with your imagination. You're conjuring up really. That's why he wouldn't focus on Reagan so much. So otherwise, it would be too. You start to familiarize yourself.
Yeah, like I said, everything is going to fall short from that first movie. But the guy, I think it was respectful. It wasn't perfect. And we all had our complaints about it, but yeah, I didn't dislike it, I think, as much as, or was disappointed as much as you were. I enjoyed it, actually. We covered it on the show, actually. We did 2 episodes at a time and went through the whole thing. But the second season,
huh? I covered it too.
Oh, did you? Okay, I'm gonna have to take a look at your back catalog.
When it went, this is like backlog from when it first came out, and it's not on my existing channel. It's actually on my Alaska After Dark channel.
Okay.
I figured is like abandon that and just kind of give an overall of the season what I thought, because I took every episode, from all the way down to this whole thing with confronting the Pope, which didn't go anywhere. Father, what was that other priest?
I can't remember. Father Martin or
Father Marcus or
Father Marcus. That was it. Father Marcus.
Was it Marcus? Okay, yeah, and he comes up and cuts this man's throat.
Yeah, with a rosary.
With no consequence. He just leaves. Mind you, like all these people are under some kind of weird momentarily spell, whatnot, but nobody's going to approach this.
No,
or having Chris McNeil fall down the steps. I could fall down the steps and not break my neck and have my head turned completely around. That made no sense.
My impression was that after that ended, they ran. Because I think what she managed to do, in that episode after, because the police commissioner was part of the witches' coven or, whatever that was, just kind of blew it over. And I remember that one police officer was like, what the fuck, what are you doing? I have to interview this lady. This doesn't smell right. And he's like, no, we're leaving. and then everything just kind of took off from there. And then you have to conclude, you have to assume, but I imagine that they're in hiding somewhere, probably under false identities or some shit like that.
And then toward the end, you have that one woman, the one that wanted to be possessed so bad, and
oh yeah.
He finally gets possessed, and then you're under the impression that by next season there's going to be bigger plans happening and whatnot.
She got cancer,
but instead they kill her off.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, I don't have a problem with that, because I think once the devil uses you up, he doesn't really, he could reward you, or he could just, chew you up and spit you out. And that's what I got the impression was, she served her evil purpose, and it failed, or it worked, or whatever, the demonic plan was. And then he just kind of, done with you, and, hope you
I kind of get the
suffer,
impression they didn't have anything for her, so they just killed her off.
It's entirely possible that that second season was not really related to the first one at all. But then again, there's nowhere left for this story to go. That's why, this one chunk that they pulled out, for 10 or 8 episodes or whatever it was actually really good, I thought. But then, then you're just pushing the envelope. But, it's producer-driven content nowadays, so it's just like, hey, how can we capitalize on this successful thing? And it doesn't really make a difference if we have a story or not. We're going to draw some people in for some episodes based on the first one, and maybe they'll limp through with us, and so on and so forth.
I had a hard time dealing with. I had a hard time believing a lot of the stuff. Like you're watching the film, and of course I'm going to compare it to the film because it's trying to call itself a direct sequel. Even though Jeremy Slater can't get the girl's age right, here he's saying it's going to be a lot more than just having what did he say, an 8-year-old possessed in Georgetown. It's like, I thought you said you were a fan, man.
Yeah, I hear you.
One little detail. I don't think so. What is this, Kevin Smith all over again with He-Man?
Oh, so. Let's keep it friendly. All right, we're starting to get into that crap. Jesus Christ! Hold on a second. We got some comments here. We got Eric. What's happening, man? Eric's a regular part of the show. This is afternoon. Can't wait to hear what movies you're showcasing. I guess that's Eric telling us to keep it moving. And he says it's like the Black Coat's daughter. Once a demon gets what it wants, it doesn't need the human anymore. So was kind of my.
But I kind of got the impression that. Since she had cancer all this time, there was no use for her. But we didn't know anything about the cancer part. And who was the guy in the back? Was that her husband in the first season in the medical bed?
Yeah, that was the guy in the medical bed.
What was the story on that? I wish they would have said something, brought that to light a little bit better.
Wasn't perfect, but I think out of all the things that have come out since '73, that's either second or third, depending on what you feel about Exorcist 3 in terms of coming to the screen. Because the second one, there is a 5-minute scene in there that I love between Burton and James Earl Jones, where he has to step on the nail. He has to experience the pain in order to pass the test. I love that scene in there, but it's a terrible movie. And then you've got Dominion, which, it tried. And then you got that Rennie Harlan thing. And then, we get the television series, depending on how you feel about it. And then we get to where we're at right now. And I guess we might as well just get into it. Exorcist Believer. You and I, that's kind of how we started talking in the first place. Jesus, I wanted to like it. I wanted it to be good. I wasn't... betting my grandmother on it, but I didn't think it was going to be as bad as that. I was shocked. I went to go see it and this is the first movie we're discussing in the possession movies of 2023. I went to see it on Thursday, the day before, it drops release on Friday, 5 p.m. My very first feature in our local multiplex. And I'm like, when is this going to be over? It's like, now I'm not a David Gordon Green fan. I think his Halloween movies are shit because, again, I think that the original story ended in 78. So I think all of the movies that have followed up since then have been shit, with the exception of the zombie movies. I'm one of the few Halloween fans that actually feel that way. I like those sequels or those reboots. But wow, I mean, like he missed the entire point of everything. And to me, what he ended up doing was creating like this secular progressive possession film. And I'm like, this is fucking awful.
Well, the warnings were there. I brought that up in one of my videos, that my thoughts on the new Exorcist film. It didn't have a title yet, but I did watch the Joe Bob Briggs interview, and that's where the red flags came up back 2021. I think it was December. No. It had to have been around October because it was a Halloween hoedown, and that's available on Shudder for anybody who wants to see that. It should still be.
Okay.
Especially this month. I did take some of the quotes out of there. You got to really dig for that just small moment of interview, because they're sitting there and they're carving pumpkins, right? You know, I don't know if you ever seen that Joe Bob where he's like, looks like he's on a trailer set or something.
He's got his
hostess over there. He's sitting there with Joe. He's sitting there with David Gordon Green's. I guess they're cutting out pumpkins or something, and then the Exorcist comes up, and he asked the right questions.
Oh, he would. I mean, he knows what to do.
Unlike a lot of those, when what's it feel like to
the shill media,
horror films at all time.
Yeah. please let me have some more access, please. I promise not to ask any real
there you
questions,
go. Yeah, that's what it kind of felt like. It's like,
can I shave your back? What the fuck? Get out of here.
Ew.
Oh, now you're squeamish. Okay.
There you go. Yeah, I'd rather not imagine that. Yeah, here. But yeah, I was kind of like, okay, he's not approaching any of the Catholics in this one. He says, we've talked to a lot of consultants. Okay, this is like kind of like politician answer or something, or what? Something or other. It's like, hold
on. Eric's saying you can't just blame David Gordon Green when both that Halloween and Believer had 4 writers. That's a red flag.
Oh yeah, I've noticed that too. Eric, do you think that, say, Jason Blum and the studio interfered? I kind of got that impression too, a little bit.
What made you feel that way?
I don't know. It just, you got Friedkin. Friedkin pretty much had he was able to do whatever he wanted to. I mean, he was able to get out there to Iraq, of all things. He had like about 3.5 hours worth of footage filmed there. Of course, he's not going to use it all, but it's just all that like, there was that worry about money, of course, but they weren't telling him, okay, you got to put this in and put that in. I mean, originally they wanted to cut the Iraq scene totally out and get rid of Father Marin.
Oh Lord, can you imagine
how that would flow out?
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I've said this many times. One of the biggest things about The Exorcist isn't just the possession; it's the spiritual struggle, the fact that Regan is this child of divorce, with no traditional male protectors because her father is just off somewhere fucking off. And, all of these men, which, you couldn't do today, rush into this void to, sacrifice themselves to save this little girl. 2 men that are strangers end up giving their lives up to save this little girl. Kinderman's trying to solve this crime. Even when you get to the book, you talk about Carl, and everything that he tries to do, to protect this little girl, or just, the love he shows, changing her clothes and, cleaning her up after every episode, and, Green didn't seem to understand any of that. Now, it's entirely possible that Blumhouse did get involved, because everything is producer driven nowadays. But, we had multicultural exorcists who didn't seem to know what to do, just slapping the Catholic Church in the face, by portraying them as just, craven and abandoning the family. Chris McNeil's, and, too bad if you, haven't seen it yet. It's been weeks, because we're going to drop some spoilers here, saying that, Marin and Karis didn't let her inside the exorcism because of the patriarchy. And
I don't know where that came from.
What the fuck is going on here? Like, you just slapped, like, the two, I hate to say it, they're almost more important than Regan when it comes to the whole story. And they really went for it. They just pissed on the whole thing. Hold on a second. Eric says, A total of 4 movies that have this much backlash from fans and moviegoers. Not sure you completely can blame interference from the production companies. That's too much of a coincidence for 4 movies. Yeah, I just think this guy doesn't get it. I think he's kind of like almost like this James Gunn character. It doesn't make a difference what you want. You're going to get what he gives you,
right.
and be thankful. And that I know better than you, and shut up and, eat your peas, kind of thing. And it's funny because I'm looking at the numbers right now for this movie, and it has passed $100 million. And I've been talking to some people. This guy James Hancock, who said that he hopes Gordon Green, rots in a sulfur-smelling place, if you take my meaning. But we're looking at $107 million off a $30 million budget, $54 million domestic, and $53 million internationally. So is that considered a success? $400 million. You can't leave out the $400 million that they've spent on the rights for this entire franchise.
Right.
So they're going to have to keep making product here. But this is not going. It drops the video on demand on Tuesday. So it's been less than 30. In 3 weeks, it drops the video on demand. Plus, it got that smack from the TD Boppers and Taylor Swift coming out the following week.
Sure.
Is this, is it a success? I don't know. I think James said that, that would have to be for Universal to decide. But to get that $400 million back, they're going to have to keep making it. And I think they're making a terrible mistake charging people $29.95 to watch this thing.
It's going to be more. It'll be more expensive than it would be if you just bought the DVD or the Blu-ray.
Yeah, people could wait another couple of weeks. Yeah, they're just going to get. But I think what
actually, if you go on Amazon, they said that it was available. I think at the end of the year on DVD. I don't know if anybody else is putting it out anytime soon, but I think they're going to try to get what they can, just like on that video on demand.
I think that they are. It's a week before Christmas. Hey, I'm sitting here with my girlfriend. I'm sitting here with my wife. I'm sitting here with my kids. We got nothing to watch tonight. Oh, the new Exorcist movie is out. Okay, I think $30 is too much. Serious horror fans aren't going to do it, but you might get it from the normies who are just looking for something to do one night in front of the TV screen a week before Halloween. And if you are a normie, then you probably won't have any of these complaints that we have, because it'll just be a big spectacle-driven possession movie, because they don't differentiate. And that's fine, because they have things that they fixate on. And, I'd be like, who gives a shit? This kind of stuff. But, yeah, $107 million. Eric is saying it took 3 weeks to make $100 million, and it did. It's a success based on the budget for the movie, but that's still got to be considered a major disappointment. Yeah. Probably would have made, you might have got to 150 if not for the Taylor Swift thing the week after. I knew when they had to lose Friday the 13th release date, that was going to be a problem. But it is what it is, and there's not much to do about it.
Here's a question for you. Okay, what are your thoughts? Okay, we're going to compare the first one to this one. What are your in this being an approach on the demon, right? Okay, what are your thoughts on, let's say, okay, with Pazuzu, we had a statue. Mm-hmm. That looks probably closer to what you'd see at the, the museum or whatnot. And then what you're imagining in the back of your mind compared to a woman in a full bodysuit for this one. Have you seen the makeups for this?
I did, and I to be honest, I was okay with that
bodysuit.
Yeah, I was okay with that brief, couple frame thing. I didn't have any major complaints with that. I think anytime that you try to, bring a demon into, some sort of, physical manifestation, it's going to fall short by and large, unless you're talking Peter Jackson with the Balrog. Who's just so fucking overwhelming or something like that. So I didn't necessarily complain about that. I liked, by and large, again, that you didn't see the demon. The demon was the kid in the first movie. So obviously that's much preferred, and I think that was part of what fell apart in Schrader's movie, that they personified the demon in this, sort of rock star boy, that kind of thing. It was just really bad effects, but I didn't even understand who the demon was in this movie.
Yeah, how were you supposed to predict that? I mean,
I didn't know. I didn't know how they.
Okay, we're in Haiti, right? And so you look at, like, say, the first one, you kind of got an idea of what's going on. We're in Iraq. Here's that statue of Pazuzu. You know that it's kind of related to the area a bit. But with Haiti, you've got Lamashtu. I wouldn't have guessed, other than the pregnant wife. That's the closest I would have probably come to it. But when it was in Haiti, I kept thinking it might have been something more Haitian voodoo related. And when they mentioned the woods, it made me think of that entity that kind of like is their devil, that Bakalu Baka.
Okay.
It kind of follows that whole story about, like they he tried to gather a revolt against I can't remember which I think they call him Lao. I don't know the whole story, but they ended up banishing Bakalu Baka into the woods.
Okay.
And so I thought maybe they were going to go with that, but he went for Lamashtu. So
there were too many characters. There were too many people in this movie, and with nothing to do. So everybody just came across as paper thin. Just paper thin. I mean, the first movie had a couple of characters. The third movie only had a couple of characters. It was basically, Kinderman, Brad Dourif, Jason Miller. If you're watching the theatrical release, and a couple other periphery people, the wife, these sorts of things. A couple of the other police detectives that George C. Scott is always railing on, that sort of thing. Here, there were these characters that were supposed to be important to the story. But just the script was so thin, you didn't understand much of what was going on, necessarily why selected, how they got possessed. They just came back and they were possessed. And you're just like, what's happening? What's happening here?
Catherine's family just seemed like a throwaway.
They were. They were very much a throwaway. You focused on the black family. So on and so forth. There was a white family, because one child is black, one child is white. And the other family basically was kind of like a throwaway family, in which, like, why were they in there in the first place? You could have just had one girl. And if you wanted to make it a black family, that's fine. Who cares?
I think he was kind of fixated on that whole idea of synchronized possession. So he needed a second one, if not three. But, watching the film, it's like, even looking back at the list of the cast members, before the film came out, it's like Catherine's family didn't even have a name. They just listed them, and that was it. And I didn't even know their last name until the father hung up that like missing persons flyer. Yeah. It says right at the bottom, Catherine Wells, or I think that's West. Was it West? It's either West or Wells. I can't remember.
That's the whole point. It doesn't matter.
It's like, it doesn't matter. Your throwaway family.
Yeah. Off with your head. It was bad. Now, again, $100 million. Who knows? It might, especially when we get to physical media, we might make it to 150. But they say that he's already been removed from the director's chair. But if you ask me, he needs, because there's going to be another one coming. I think it's next year or the year after. 25, I think it is. He needs to be removed from, and that writing team needs to be removed from the entire creative process. Now, I don't know if you'd want to bring James Wan in, or Fede Alvarez, or an actual non-horror director who's just a great director. But this guy is not up for the job. Not up for the job. Very good.
I'm actually wondering if it's too late to do a hard reset.
I don't know. I don't know if I think one of the things that has probably helped them has been the strike. in that they haven't had to sit down and answer any hard questions. I'm completely serious, because they haven't had to spend that double amount of money, like on marketing and production, that sort of thing. That probably would have brought the budget up to like 50 million, something like that, subtracting from profits. Post release, no one's had to sit. They haven't had to sit in those chairs, like you see them across from like 100 people over the course of like 3 days or something, and just keep answering questions. The movie has just been released, and it's quietly being pulled back. It's broken 100 million. Probably by the end of the year, I'd say it'll get to 150, and they can quietly reset, maybe, and get the strike over with, and get some new people in there. But my God, you need to put serious people on this, because if you want to have a possession movie, that's one thing. But if you want to do The Exorcist, that's a whole other level of expectation, and it deserves better. It deserves better.
Do you kind of get the impression for this year that there were enough possession? They were pushing possession films because of The Exorcist being its 50th anniversary?
It's possible. I didn't get that impression. Short answer is no, I didn't get that impression. But it's entirely possible. They wanted something to compete with. And the funny thing is that The Exorcist was the worst of all the movies that I've seen this year, in terms of possession. Let's move on to another movie, because we could just bag this all day and that wouldn't be a problem. Let's get to one that I definitely enjoyed, Evil Dead Rise. Okay. What did you think?
It pretty much follows the Evil Dead canon, I thought.
Now, are you a person?
It's pretty much like what you almost expect. You're comparing it to what came before it, and it to me, it kind of followed the what do I want to say? I wouldn't say so much the remake, maybe a little bit of both. The newer one, the last one.
Yeah, let me ask you about that. Now, are you one of those people that's in the camp of, like, if there's no Ash, it's not an Evil Dead movie? Because
I think it's fine. I think it would be fine.
Okay, because I love Fede Alvarez's remake. I've covered the first Evil Dead Raimi's, and I understand its place and why it's respected. But looking at it now is not the same as when I looked at it 40 years ago. And now it kind of comes across as white noise, because it just gets screechier and screechier and screechier. And like, I remember I got to like the last 15 minutes. I'm like, I can't fucking watch this. This is giving me a headache. Very bold for the time, enjoyable. Great to see Bruce Campbell being young. I'm a big Bruce Campbell fan. But when I saw Fede Alvarez's remake, I'm like, this is a serious fucking horror movie. This guy's going for it. He's not trying to do the same thing. He's not turning it into a horror comedy, because I don't like horror comedies as a rule. There are a few exceptions. And when I saw this, I was like, yeah, this has a bit of both, but I think it leaned much heavier in the 2013 direction.
Yeah, I'd say you're right. I'd say you're right on that one. It's almost like a little kind of like a hybrid.
Yeah, now I'm wondering if, at some point, because they're going to be making more of these. This was a big success. People loved it. Even if you were an Ash only kind of Evil Dead person, they seem to like it. That crowd, and who knows, maybe at some point they'll bring back there's going to be another movie, but maybe there'll be one with all the survivors from these movies, and if there's one more, and whoever else. I don't think Bruce Campbell is coming back for any more of these. I think he said he's done. Although he serves in a producer. Yeah, and I think he did do some voice work in this.
Yeah, I heard that one too.
Yeah, he was in that. But I enjoyed this. It was fun. It was gross.
Did it meet your expectations as an Evil Dead film?
Yes, absolutely. Okay. Absolutely.
That's one big difference between, I think, this Last Believer film and what you would expect for like Evil Dead.
Yeah,
I think there's a little bit more flexibility too. So, with Evil Dead.
Yeah. And
You've got
you
some
know,
flexibility.
it's funny because it seems like we keep coming back to The Exorcist, but I mean, how hard
Well,
is it?
I'm just trying to use it as a reference.
Yeah, as a sounding board. No,
sure.
I'm just trying to figure out how hard it would be to actually just find a screenplay. Just keep them away from the screenplay, and just to find a screenplay that would be, serious in its tone and with some depth. That kind of thing. I don't understand how they miss that. But
I think what they need to do, and it's almost blasphemous, is just remake The Exorcist in a contemporary time. It's not going to be the original, but at least you'll have something to actually sequel to without having to go back to the original, because you just can't touch the original. There's just no way to do it.
No.
Especially 50 years later. What honestly do you expect?
I remember. I think
years.
That's the problem.
You can't really.
I think that's
thing.
part of the challenge, though. It's like, this movie's 50 years old. There's no way that I can't. You can't. And I think the difference is that, one, Blatty is extremely underrated as an author. He wasn't just a screenwriter. Mm-hmm. He was a comedy writer long before he became a horror writer. And they're like, wait, Blatty's writing horror, and then he would be like, years would go by and he wanted to get back to comedy. He's like, wait a minute, Blatty's writing comedy, but you also had Friedkin, who is not some sort of horror author. He was a serious artist and a film director.
Kind of like documentary at the time. He was kind of doing documentaries at the time.
Yeah, but I mean,
so it reflected I'd say it reflected in that French Connection, especially.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely, fantastic stuff. And now you've just got horror people trying to do it, and they don't have the depth. It's shallow and it's unimportant, and it sucks. It sucks. All right, so let's move on to another film that came out this year. And I think that this movie did not suck. I thought it was fantastic. And it's the only one that I actually own I have a physical media copy of. And that's Nefarious.
Yeah, I saw that one. Yeah.
I loved this movie. And I was waiting and I was waiting and I was waiting for it to drop in my local cinema house or multiplex. We have a couple of small little places, but then we have one big multiplex about 15 minutes down the road. And it never did. Like, I'm in South Jersey. I would have had to go all the way to Delaware to try and find a copy of Nefarious. It didn't happen. And then finally it dropped a video on demand. And the day that I found out that it dropped, I sat down and watched it, and it was better than I thought it was going to be. A lot of horror fans didn't like it because I think horror fans on the whole tend to be heavy on spectacle, and they want, their kills and their gore and that sort of thing. And this wasn't about that.
It kind of reminded me of the conversations, you go into the novel, the Exorcist novel, between Karis and the demon, that being kind of cut short in the film.
Yeah.
But it also, in a way, it almost reminded me of, with a different outcome, reminded me of that movie Primal Fear. And I think,
oh God, I haven't seen that in forever.
One of the reasons was the stuttering, his I guess, what would you call him? What was his name? Edward?
Ed, yeah, something or other. Yeah, I don't remember.
And he have that stutter like like Edward Norton.
Yeah. Man, I haven't seen that in forever. I saw that once in the theater. I never saw it.
As soon as he started doing that, I was like, this reminds me of Primal Fear. But then when you get to the end of the film, it's not. It definitely isn't.
No.
But you also get that feeling like, you're still in that area where you kind of teeter on whether he's just insane or if he's really possessed. You don't get the obvious. You don't get anything real obvious. because he did it, because the character did his research. He had notes on the guy he's talking to, little cutout pictures and whatnot. And he's like, where's he getting all this? And so he thought he was like stalking him. Right.
It's well, I mean, what you've got here is a horror film that's a dialogue film. And that's very rare in horror. And so it, basically it's the story of, a man who on the day that he is to be executed, a psychiatrist goes in there to evaluate him and deem him fit for execution or not, except that the man who is about to be executed claims that he is not that man, that he's actually a demon, and that he's inhabiting the body of this man and has forced him to commit all these awful crimes that he's now allowing him to take credit for. And what I loved about this movie was that it was just basically a dialogue movie about two guys sitting across a table from each other.
You got a chance to really focus in.
You're not distracted listen
by anything else going on.
Yeah, you're not listening. You're not, no pea soup and blinking lights and and instead everything is just laid out through dialogue. Is exactly why this is happening, the reason that these things happen in the first place. The psychiatrist's own responsibility for the errors in his life. It was, it came across to many as a faith-based possession film. But it's a very smart film with a minimal number. And this is the exact opposite, actually, of The Exorcist, and that you have maybe 3 characters, 4, tops, 2 main characters, and then maybe the warden, the one priest who's kind of more secular than the psychiatrist, and that's it. And you're just watching the story unfold. You're not exactly sure how it's going to end. I wouldn't call it a happy ending. If I did have a complaint about it, though, it would be the last scene outside the studio. I think he could have just walked out of the studio and had that been it.
Oh, instead of running into the person in the
homeless, the dumpster scene. Now, I won't give that one away because this is actually worth seeing. But yeah, if that had just been, left alone, I would have been okay with it. I mean, Glenn Beck is actually in the movie playing himself.
Right.
And when I saw that, I'm like, holy shit, Glenn Beck is in this? Okay. No problem. It's cool.
I like the script.
Yeah. And it's a fantastic movie. It's thoughtful. You could tell somebody cared. They gave a shit instead of just trying to shove something through. Because I never understand when people make bad horror movies, how they greenlight them. Like, how do you look at this and say, oh yeah, this is the one we're going to, you're like, wait, what? How are you? It's just, like a shameless cash grab, but that's probably more often the case than not. But this was not that. And I loved it. I thought it was.
Well, I can see where people could be turned off on it because they're so geared to like the action films, expecting something else to happen, instead of sitting and 2 people pretty much talking throughout the whole thing, didn't meet their expectation. But it was a good film. It's kind of like what I would expect in what would happen in real life, and you're kept, like I said, you're kept in that whole moment where is this guy for real or is he just crazy or that's that approach seemed to stop happening with a lot of these possession films, especially when you got like a psychiatrist involved.
You can pretty much predict what's going to happen a lot of the times in these sorts of things. And so I think most of the time when it comes to a possession film, the standard hope is that it's just fun to watch. Is that it's, I'm not like, I categorize things into 3 categories. One, I just have content, which is just right down there at the bottom. And so I would consider like The Exorcist content. And then I think most things fit into the second category, which is entertainment. And then, you get to real high levels of entertainment. So you're like, okay, this is like real shit. But then at the very highest, I find cinema. And probably most possession films, if you're lucky, fall into the the entertainment category. This was high level entertainment. I don't know that I don't think I would consider it cinema, but it was as good as I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah.
As good as I've seen in a damn long time. So I was pleased. Went out and bought a copy. I just watched it recently again for a second time, and it held up. It held up. And I thought that Sean Patrick Flanery, who was probably the last person I would think to have in a possession film, because I just sort of remember him. I just think of him from the Boondock Saints,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of thing. I was just watching that the other day, and that's another movie that still holds up.
Yeah, I haven't seen that for a while.
It's a good one. It's a good
but
one.
It's just,
you can find it on Tubi or something like that. It's always on there for free. That kind of thing. So
I might have a copy somewhere.
I have a copy. I have a Blu-ray copy because, with the fickle rules of the digital library world, I find it most comforting just to have your own physical media, and then I don't have to wait for HBO or Amazon or whatever to decide. Oh, we're getting rid of that. This sort of thing, and
even censoring, like they did with the French Connection. A lot of the streaming.
They
censored it.
The racial,
you wouldn't expect that, And one of the things that really threw me is I had bought something on their digital side from Amazon, right? I go back to try to play it, and it doesn't play. I get something else. Basically, it's the link is correct, but they attached it to something else. It was some documentary, and I had to call them up. It's like, what happened to my film? I go back into their, when you're ordering something, whether you rent it or you try to buy it, and it says unavailable. So once it's unavailable on Amazon and you've got it in the digital world, you don't really own it. It's like you're leasing it or something. You don't really own that copy. You're better off buying yourself a physical copy.
Yeah. And you see that like Best Buy's closing down now, and they're going to stop, selling DVDs. And I used to have Books A Million. About 15 minutes used to be an old border store, and they used to sell used DVDs and Blu-rays. Oh God, I was in hog heaven over there. But then they shut that down last year. So now, it's difficult to find. eBay, Amazon, third-party sellers. You can get, I always believe, getting a used copy, give a used movie a home, a used book a home, that kind of thing. But as much physical media as you can grab it now, because you don't know what direction things are going to turn in. And I'm not a vinyl collector or anything like that, but when it comes to books and movies, that's what I want.
And the other bad thing is going to be like a lot of the I've heard that if this censoring continues, like the newer copies, maybe just the censored copy, that you notice there'd be a difference. I think the with the scene that they cut out,
they're at the bar, right? Is that scene where they're at the bar?
I'm not sure.
I think it's him and Roy Scheider.
If it's the scene that you're thinking of, I'm not sure if that was the scene, but there was like a noticeable jump, I think, from what I've understood. I didn't really pay attention because I went ahead and bought a copy a long time ago. I really liked that film, so I'm not too worried about it. It's more so anything else, like say they do like I think they already did the 4K. Didn't they do the 4K transfer on the?
I don't know. I don't own the French Connection. Sad to say.
Okay.
But
But I would almost think if they're going to do a transfer now, they're going to give you the censored one before they will give you the old one.
The myth of capitalism, man. It's like that book, once you figure out that only a couple of corporations own all the market share, they can do whatever they want with it, man. And if you don't like it, too bad, because you can't get it from anybody else. The third-party seller is the way to go. And who knows? I was reading that book, and they're like, Amazon will compete against their own third-party sellers if they find they're doing too well. So yeah, it's a weird time. It's a fucking weird time. Hold on a second. We got a couple of comments here. We got Castellar Daniel Garcia. He says supernatural horror is big now. Yeah, we're going to get into another movie in a second. He says slashers still work. Oh, God. Slashers. Ooh, I don't know if I want to get into that. That's a whole other slashers are, yeah, that's a whole other conversation. Physical media, Best Buy going, now Walmart or Amazon. Yeah. You get there, the Walmart brand of whatever. You can get these box sets, these sorts of things. Halloween was most of the things they had. I had a copy of, and I have no interest in Scream, so I passed most things. But then I find, horror franchises. I mean, they just deteriorate. So I'll just get the first copy, the first installation, and leave it at that. Glad I just got the Funhouse Phantasm 1 to 5. Oh God. Yeah, French Connection, Gene Hackman. That is pre-Exorcist or a year after? 74, French Connection?
Oh, no, that was before.
Was it 72?
Yeah.
Okay, 72, so the year before.
Yeah. That's one of the big sellers at that point in time for having Friedkin. I mean, it started off where, like, Blatty was ready to go on Carson and complain about supposedly having being able to pick the director he wanted, and the studio wasn't allowing it. And then somewhere along the lines, he went to go see French Connection. He really enjoyed it, and then gets that call about Friedkin, and the studio wanted him as well.
Let me ask you, who would be the modern day equivalent of that today? Would it be like Nolan in The Dark Knight? Yeah, Friedkin directing.
You know who I
just so out of pocket,
I don't know if I'd give it to anyone in the U.S.
Okay, list somebody else.
Okay. I wouldn't say that. Okay. Have you ever seen the film Antichrist with Willem Dafoe? That's who I'd.
Oh, Lars von. No, I never have.
That's who I'd give it to. Just on some of the shots, I would never imagined. There's a shot where we're inside the hearse, and Willem Dafoe and I guess it's his wife, are following. The rain is coming down on the back window, and it's just bizarre. But it's almost like Eraserhead in a way, like a David Lynch moment. I would never have thought of that shot, and all the things, the graphic moments in this film.
Are they that bad? Because I'm just not into like torture audition, or like the Takashi Miike torture porn, like Ichi the Killer, or like that kind. Like if it's that, I usually don't want to watch it.
It was bizarre. It was one of those you got to watch it maybe a second time to try to grasp what was going on. It was just a very bizarre film. It felt very foreign.
I almost watched it a couple of weeks ago because it came up in conversation, and I was like, I never watched it. And they're like, oh, you got to watch it. And my friends of mine, and I was like, oh, I don't know. All right, maybe I'll give it a shot. I
would kind of hope there was some kind of understudy of Friedkin that kind of wanted to follow his footsteps a little bit more. I know I did, but I just never went that direction. And part of me is glad for all the stuff that's happening now, especially.
It's hard
to the Hollywood scene.
Yeah, because it'd be hard for a director like that to catch on nowadays.
I mean, back in the 70s when you had the new Hollywood era break in, the Hays Code was no longer. That was the time to have that come out. And it's funny, you look at something like Rosemary's Baby, and it was like coming out around the time that the Hays Code was pretty much being taken over by the rating system. Because you had back then, you're like, okay, you can't show nudity and all this other stuff. You can't show anything sexual, blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, you get the bunch of movies that come out like, let's say Clute, Midnight Cowboy.
Yep.
All those started coming out and making a name for themselves, especially all the new directors that were popping up.
The 70s were a really subversive fucking time in film, man. I love the 70s.
I think we need something like that come back.
Yeah, we've had Coppola, we had Friedkin, we had Spielberg, we had who directed the first Rocky movie? Was it Stallone?
Yeah.
It was
Yeah, it was his
Stallone.
own money and everything. It's like,
yeah.
And you look at and you think about it, I was like, wow, that's just amazing. He was able to do all this and just put it together,
It's one of the greatest films of all time. Just about this guy from the neighborhood who just doesn't want to be another bum.
Yeah, it was great. I went back and watched it again, and it was like I totally forgot about a lot of these long shots, the kind of the filming that you don't see anymore.
Yeah,
and I was like, wow.
Yeah, I mean,
it was just awesome.
Apocalypse Now, Jaws, The Godfather. Oh yeah, the 70s were a fantastic time. And then, of course, it went off into cocaine land in the 80s. Arnold Schwarzenegger shooting 1,000 guys, and never catching a bullet. This kind of thing. And I was a teenager back then, so it was fun, but it was fucking brain dead, man. Like it wasn't serious stuff. Okay. Hold on a second, Castellar. Friday the 13th. Yeah, that's coming back to A24. That Crystal Lake thing. I think they got Brian Fuller from Hannibal. Show running that I'm not a Friday the 13th fan, but if A24 is going to look at it, I'd like to believe that they're going to take it somewhat seriously. They could do some sort of retro thing and revamping it like they did with Hannibal, which I thought was going to be the biggest piece of crap ever. And I was the first person who said, why are we rebooting Hannibal Lecter? And then I saw Mads Mikkelsen up there and I was like, what the fuck? This is fantastic. Yeah, Kubrick. Kubrick's another one. Yeah, ahead of his time. Romero. Yeah, Romero was late 60s. Yeah. I was not a fan of The Omen. I'm not I think that's one of the most overrated horror movies of all time. I think it was just an Exorcist hangover film. It was just Exorcist hangover. Yeah, it was. How can we capitalize on this success? The devil's in this child. Oh, well, let's make the devil the child, And I'm like, the kid's 5. You can't do a goddamn thing. He's not scary. The best thing in there, as always, was David Warner's performance, because David Warner, no matter what you put him in, always steals the show. I am enjoying Mike Flanagan a lot. I have to get to Fall of the House of Usher. We're going to cover that soon. Okay. Next one. We've got maybe one or two more. The Nun. The Nun 2. I thought that this was a fantastic movie. It was exactly what a sequel should be, unless we're talking about like The Godfather 2. Instead of like playing around, it just went right at it. Balls to the wall. I thought it was fun. I enjoy the Conjuring universe. I haven't seen any of the Annabelle movies because they just seem stupid, and I don't think a doll could be scary, but I could be wrong. But I've enjoyed those movies, and I enjoy this movie. I like Tassia Farmiga. What did you think? Did you see it?
This one I skipped just because you get so many offshoots out of the Conjuring universe that I pretty much stopped at Conjuring 2.
Okay.
I stopped at Conjuring 2, even though like in the Enfield Poltergeist, the Warrens didn't really have that much involved in that, from what I understood.
But
they kind of ran with it, like with the
like the second movie plugs in and then start with the DeFeo murders. Plugs them in right in with that. And this one, I mean, it's just a fun horror movie. I am not someone who's into jump scares. These were top tier jump scares. Very dark, lots of mood, so on and so forth. I like the Valak nun character. You're not looking at, this isn't nefarious with a ton of depth. But where I live, I have the Regal app, so I pay $20 a month, and then I only pay like 50 cents every time I want to go see a movie.
So there you go.
App, 20. Anything you want to see is, you pay 53 cents for the service charge, and then you just kind of go from there. Because movies here are about $16 a ticket. I don't know what you're paying out there in Alaska.
That's about the same.
Yeah, so it's expensive.
If not a little bit more.
Yeah, it's not cheap. It's not cheap to go see a movie. And then if you want popcorn and a bottle of water, you're talking $35.
Sure.
Right there. So I don't mind doing that. And so, I could get myself to the theater once a week, 15 minutes down the road, and go see something like this. If you get a chance, I'm sure you'll get a chance. Don't pass it up. Don't pass it up. This one's a fun one. This one's a fun one. I like the Ed and Lorraine Warren. I think that I like that they had serious people. I like Patrick Wilson. I like Vera Farmiga, and the different stories that they've had so far. So I got the whole box set on DVD, the Conjuring 1 through 3.
What did you think of 3?
It wasn't the best story. I liked what some people did with it. They just did a Netflix documentary on that, The Devil on Trial. It's the only case in the United States.
And it's funny to compare the kid that was in the film to the kid that it happened to, and it's like, that doesn't look like the kid.
No. And when you hear the audio,
still alive or something. That's the only thing
and now he's just an overweight kind of American dude just sitting in this chair. The documentary seems to knock the movie down a peg, or it just doesn't grab the. And I don't know if it's legit or not. Depend on what your opinion is on the Warrens. I like that they are self-aware of the fact that they're called kooks and frauds in the movies. But yeah, it didn't grab me in any sort of frightening way. I thought a pretty good documentary was The Devil and Father Amorth.
I had that
was that was good. That was good because you're actually seeing what's considered a live exorcism. That was a little freaky the first time I saw it, and that had some genuine creep to it. I got through about halfway, and I haven't come back to finishing The Devil on Trial. But the third movie, I thought it was pretty good. I like that they're starting to show the Warrens. Ed had that heart attack in the beginning of the movie. He looks like he's putting on a little bit of weight. He's getting older. Vera, Lorraine's dressing dowdier. She was like really pretty in the first one. Now she's, they're trying to show in their age a little bit, a bit of physical deterioration. Yeah. It wasn't terrible. It wasn't terrible. My favorite movie is the second one.
I like the second one. Honestly, don't think there was that much. They had that much involvement outside that one guy. I can't remember his name. With the glasses and the like the Pringles mustache.
Yeah, I don't remember.
But he's
I haven't heard that.
Spent more time with him as far as like if I remember right in what was going on in that case, it was kind of like the Warrens came and went. It's like there's enough people here. Basically, was the thought on that. The one thing that really took me out back to that third one. The one thing that really took me out of it was in the beginning when the kid's basically twisting himself into pretzel.
At the very beginning.
I was like, there's no way he's going to be alive after this happens.
That's going to hurt. Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I'm fine.
Yeah, because you saw what happened to Gina Davis in the final episode when she goes and you're like, oh, that's fucked up. Okay. Of the series.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I thought the second film captured the most creep in authenticity. I don't know. I don't know. I almost consider them to be more fun than I do for any sort of factual. It's more of a fun basis than a factual basis, if that makes any sense.
My favorite scene in the second one was when the little brother that was like so into cookies or whatever it was that stuttered. He comes running out because the crooked man is chasing him. Oh, and then you see the shadow and you can hear the crooked man saying that rhyme. The crooked man did this and something that. Like that, yeah. And then gradually the shadow kind of comes down to the little girl, and then she's walking out, and then after the spirit leaves, she just drops onto the floor and is like going into spasms and whatnot. I really liked that scene.
I like the one where Vera Farmiga is in her house and Valak comes to visit.
Okay. Yeah.
And she's in the picture, but then you're not sure if it's the picture anymore. You could see her at the end of the hallway,
right?
In the darkness and the shadow. Yeah, I like that.
And I think it was like there was fingers coming around the
painting. Around the frame of the frame of the painting. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Hold on a second. We got the Nun 1 was not very good. Nun 2 was better. I agree with that. Conjuring 3 is a weak film. Okay. Fun horror films, Barbarian and Totally Killer. I like Barbarian. Justin Long's in it, so I always like Justin Long. He plays a good scumbag. Saw X. I only saw the first Saw movie. I thought it was really good. It was obvious by the second one, it was just there for the gore and the kills. And so, I got to like the razor blade handcuffs, and I'm like, I'm not watching this. This is.
I couldn't keep up with him. I got as far as maybe 2.
Okay, yeah, same here. I got up one time. It was like 2:00 in the morning. I couldn't sleep, and instead of just staring at the ceiling, I said, "Let me get up and watch a movie." And Saw 2 was on, and I was like, razor blade handcuffs, really falling in a pit of syringes. Okay, I'm out of here. Jigsaw is the Punisher of horror. Okay. I love I Trapped the Devil. Have you ever seen that? Josh Lobo.
I don't recall that one.
Ooh, it's a Christmas movie about a guy who's got the devil trapped in his basement. And as he's understanding that, holy shit, now what the hell am I supposed to do? His estranged brother and his sister-in-law come to visit him because it's Christmas. We covered that on the show. A Dark Song. That's another one. That's good too. Have you seen that?
Mm-mm.
It's a Welsh film about these two people that are barricading themselves inside of a house for months to perform this very dangerous occult ritual. It's fantastic.
I might have seen that one actually. Wasn't she trying to escape the house, and she every time she escaped, she kept coming back?
Yeah, he told her not to leave. Yeah, they put salt around the whole house.
There was just no way to leave or something to that effect. Yeah, I have seen one. Yeah, that was a good film.
Yeah, doesn't get talked about nearly enough. And again, another film with just two people. There are only two people in it. Mm-hmm. That's it. It's just those two. Very good stuff. Brooklyn 45. I don't know it. I've missed the whole VHF category. Hey, let me ask you something while we're here. So the whole thing, Changeling with George C. Scott. The Haunting from 1999 is awful. Okay, I'll take your word for that one. You being in Alaska, and you said the whole thing started with vampires. Was that because of 30 Days? Because of the Barrow, Alaska?
No, okay. That's just coincidence.
Okay. Yeah.
It was a MySpace thing.
Okay.
I got introduced to the vampire community that way, and then a lot of times I'd go to New Orleans every year, and they're they'd all gather there. Not all of them, but the politics got really bad, so I kind of cut back on that.
Okay, fair enough. All right, let's get to the final movie of the stream. We're talking about 2023 and possession movies, and I enjoyed this one, and I've started watching it again, but I'm taking it in pieces. But it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Wait, as soon as I bring it up here, forgive me. The Pope's Exorcist. I like this movie. I thought it was fun. Russell Crowe, it was better than I thought it was going to be. I didn't see it in the theaters. It dropped on Netflix, and all the people that are regulars on my show, I'm in a texting group with them. So I'm like, hey, this movie just dropped on Netflix. Go catch it. I watched it first, and I'm like, yeah, okay. Not to be taken seriously.
No lie.
But it definitely falls into what Eric, who was in the stream earlier, calls a fun horror movie. And I actually wouldn't mind, although I doubt he'd do it, if Russell Crowe was to play this role again, kind of like the Warrens, and do a couple of these, because Father Ormworth is, or was, rest in peace, the chief exorcist for the Vatican. So there must be a ton of source material there where, you could take it in different ways. You can play it, semi-comic like he kind of did. Which I thought he was really funny, like when he reprimands that one priest for not, not having confession for 8 months. Or Padre, really? 8 months since you're okay, never mind. Are you sorry for what you did? And he just shoots right through it. You could probably go with something really dark. I enjoyed it. Had some good mood.
Me, I had a problem with it just for the fact that I've seen The Devil and Father Amort first.
Okay.
And so, like you're looking at Russell Crowe and then you're thinking about what the real Father Amorth looks like. And it's like, and then you're remembering what's happening in what Friedkin gave out, in just in his little documentary. And it's like, I'm just not connecting it, I know they pretty much grabbed the kite string and ran with it.
Yeah.
Especially in a lot of spots. And you kind of get that impression, I did, that they might try to make a few other movies with Russell Crowe. It's like, oh, well, you got all this happening, toward the end of the film.
Yeah, there's that. There's wasn't there, and I haven't gotten to this part yet in the rewatch. Isn't there a conspiracy in the church or something along those lines?
Something like that,
or a corruption in the church, which was very similar to what was going on in the Exorcist series. There's a corruption in the church.
So, that's the other reason. I'm going to go back to the miniseries right there. I think that might be one of the reasons. I can't prove it yet. I'm still digging on it. But why? It's almost like that whole mentality. Why have a miniseries when we can have a show that we can just put seasons to? Instead of just having like maybe a 5-part miniseries, we're going to take this and we're going to run with it and do like as many seasons as possible instead of just having just this little miniseries. I think they went for the television series over the miniseries. Whoever he gave this out to, in the beginning it started off supposedly Sony picked it up, but then I kind of lost track of what happened after that.
So you're saying you should have had just a limited series and left it alone rather than...
No, I'm just saying that this might have been the reason why it never got picked up. They'd rather have their own TV series and continue the story than just keeping it within the five episodes of a miniseries, if it even came out to be 5.
Right. So by that I mean the limited series, just keep it to the one season. The story wraps up and it reaches its conclusion, and then that's rarely done nowadays.
I don't even know if I would have done that. I think, and I brought it up before, I would have kind of followed out the Roland Doe case, like because okay, you've got a novel that's based on a Roland Doe case. Well, let me back it up. Okay, we've got the Friedkin film based on the Blatty novel that's based / inspired by a real case of possession in 1949.
Sure.
And then everything else after that is just kind of like grab the kite string and run with it. It's like, okay, we got to make up something, and I also brought up that whole idea that, okay, if there was going to be a sequel, just make a prequel, because you already know what's going on, for Blatty anyway. He had an idea what Marin was all about, so he could have just went for a prequel instead of a sequel.
Well, that's what they did with Dominion.
Right, but it wasn't Blatty though.
No, it wasn't.
I know that from talking with Mike Blatty, that he
talk about that, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Talking to Mike, he said that his dad did go out there and try to help him out on a few things, but it's like with The Exorcist, they had a little bit more creative power than they did with anything else, especially like Exorcist 3. Because
like just got run over
without calling it, they had to add a whole new character just so they could have an exorcism in it, which didn't happen in the novel.
Yeah.
So
I
remember he was able to keep that that control at that point.
Yeah, if you watch the documentary, there are they get that Scream Factory or Shout Factory has both versions, or the limited scrap version.
I had that too.
Yeah, the Blatty tried to do, and there's all these documentaries, and you see these producers. Mr. Blatty didn't understand how films actually work. He just wanted to, make his film, based on his novel. And I was like, this guy's such a hack.
Yeah, but then you look back on, say, the 9th Configuration, and Blatty directed that too.
It's a different era.
Well, you see what I'm saying? You can't really say because he already did a film, if not more.
I have no problem with just saying, and within sane bounds, let a creator create. But by 1990, I think we had already come to a different point in filmmaking, and we're here in the 80s, and someone's trying to make a horror movie with some depth, which is something that you really didn't get out of the 80s. So it's
and that
1990.
was more like the blockbuster era.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
that was,
they're expecting
so,
anything they can come up with that would be a franchise.
Yeah. And, you're attempting to do an Exorcist movie, kind of on the tail end of that. If he had come along a few years later, when the 90s had sort of taken that twist for indie filmmaking, we got introduced to another generation of indie filmmakers again, maybe he would have had a choice, but the timing was just bad and they ran him over. They ran him over because you look at that original movie, Jason Miller's not even in it, and Brad Dourif is Karras.
Right. Well, he's a little bit far gone at that point. Jason Miller was, but
they said he had wet brain. Yeah, they said he had wet brain.
But honestly, I would have had a really hard time accepting just Brad Dourif as Father Karras.
Yeah,
because he made that role. Yeah. In my opinion, it'd be hard to just substitute him. Yeah.
I actually think that was an improvement.
Glad. Yeah, I'm glad that they were actually able to use him, and then like the little trade-off with Brad Dourif, where it's like the other side of him, that other like the
Gemini killer. He's the Gemini killer.
Gemini killer. He kind of jump out, and then you still have Jason Miller in the back of your head, though. Yeah. That he's sitting in there.
Yeah.
So
I actually think that was right. Yeah, that was right. I mean, I love Legion, and I love that they were able to incorporate some of the lines from Legion into Blatty's cut of what he called Legion. But yeah, I mean, just it's very difficult. It's very difficult to do. What would maybe last question or something like that? What would you consider some top tier possession films that are worth seeing? Outside of this year, we talked about a couple.
Outside of this year,
yeah. Oh, well, we didn't get into.
Well, I did.
You didn't see it yet.
Oh yeah, bring that one up. I really want to hear something about. Was it When Evil Lurks? Because there's like other titles.
Lurks.
It's when.
No. When.
Or is it where? Because there's a few of them out there. It's like, oh no, I don't want to go to the wrong film.
No, you don't. No, you don't. Because you could really fucking end up hating life. Yeah. Did I really just spend $5 watching this? And this, my understanding, in the next couple of weeks, is coming to Shudder.
Okay.
And so,
from what I heard, it's better to see it at the theater, and I've been looking into that. Yeah. And where we're at, there's only like one showing. It's like in the evening. So I'm gonna pick a night and probably go see it. I don't know how my girlfriend's gonna like it. She's not really into a lot of the graphic stuff, and I've heard it gets pretty graphic. And I've also heard that for those who have been disappointed in Believer, go see this.
Yes,
I've heard that one.
Yes, it is an Argentinian film.
Yeah, so I'd say that's a big plus, because it seems like a lot of these films that are coming outside the U.S. seem to be. I get more out of that. It's like what is that one movie? The Orphanage. I really enjoyed that film, especially when they did the scene where there was like the EVP and whatnot, and the woman's walking through the old building. You can hear the voices coming across the microphone. It was great. I think it was a great movie.
I love all of the La Llorona films that come out of Latin America. There are some fucking great. There's one out there. I think it's just called La Llorona, and it's about this Pinochet type character who thinks he got away with it, although he's essentially trapped in his house. But he's not, he's not in prison or getting hung or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't. He doesn't. And there are several of those La Llorona films that are coming down from Latin America, and a lot of good horror that's also coming out of Europe that are just levels above what most of Hollywood is putting out with the next Saw movie or whatever. But this is a fantastic horror film, almost along the lines of folk horror, which I love folk horror. Folk horror to me comes across sort of like mythology. It's got its own lore that's already accepted, so you don't have to like establish or get through the disbelief section of a story for somebody to convince you that it's a vampire or it's it already starts out that way, where everybody in the region understands that these things happen as a matter of course in this section of the world. and it's basically the story of a possessed person who is the host. The body of the possessed person is sort of taken to the outskirts of town and discarded. But there are rules as to specific ways that you can kill the body. There's a process, and these people don't honor that. And so the possessed person eventually will give birth to or will release a demon into the world. And it's this very small Spanish town where everybody understands this and is trying to ward this thing off from coming. And it is just gory, very crisp script. It has this weird way of misdirection, and that's all I'm going to say. That's extremely effective because what you're looking at over here, what's important is somewhere else, and it pulls no punches. It's not perfect. It's not perfect. But it's a damn sight. And that scene right there, that you see right there on the movie poster, startled the shit out of me. So if you have the opportunity to see it in the theater, yeah, absolutely. I run a rating system on my channel, 0 to 5. I gave it 4. But I gave The Exorcist a 2. That was probably kind.
Hey, I did the same thing. Was like 2 out of 5.
Yeah, 2 out of 5.
No. I take it back. I think I gave it a teeter between 4 and 5 out of 10.
Okay,
and 5 just being nice. Yeah, and I think Michael gave it a 4 out of 10.
What I ended up liking, if there was anything to like about it, was the performance of the girls. Who you really couldn't find fault with because that's just the script. You have to believe that the people who got involved with this were probably thinking that they were, having this once in a lifetime opportunity to grab onto something very special. And then, I'm sure they must have been aware of, this wasn't living up to their expectations. But, if you don't have you can have a weak story and sometimes have a movie where the performances or the performers are so strong that they can do a little bit of lifting. But here there was just nothing to grab onto. But this, on the other hand, with no-name actors, no-name directors, at least that I'm aware of, really hit it out of the park. I think this is a first-time effort for this director. And yeah, when he releases something else, I'll be checking it out. Damien Regina, something like that. Fantastic.
I like how it spells the name though.
Yeah, really, really, really good stuff. So yeah, we've had different types of possession movies. Some that have been fun, Evil Dead. The Nun. We've had things that are more serious, like Nefarious, more dialogue driven. Here we've had some movies that just went for it. On all thrusters, as many as it could. And so I always salute filmmakers that aren't risk averse. I think that, is something that Hollywood is sorely lacking. Everyone is so damn afraid to take some chances with things that, they release a lot of bland shit. And then we have, the perfect example of that, which is Exorcist Believer. So again,
on that one, I think they were kind of playing it safe. I got that.
Exorcist Believer?
Yeah.
I think that they were playing it politically correct. I think, when you had nobody that could do anything, and then all of a sudden the black woman, and I say this as a black guy, the black woman who, has these root sorts of things going on, and she seems to sort of take charge of the exorcism, and, the priest comes in for a quick one, and then, he's quickly, kicked off.
He comes in for a quickie.
Yeah, and there was no reason for him to be there at all. And then, bringing back the patriarchy, in this multicultural sort of, I think they tried to make a politically correct exorcism, which means they don't even begin to fathom the point of what Blatty was trying to create, or what Blatty created, and just thought that you could modernize this. and you can't, because the roots of it are as old as creation itself, and they've completely missed the point for postmodernism or modernism, and jump scares, or whatever you'd want to call it. Yeah, it's not. It's like it's like the Godfather 3. You're looking at some familiar. You're looking at some familiar characters, but it's not a Godfather movie.
Right.
It's not.
Right. So, in the back of my head, I was still trying to think of any other.
I was going to come back with that one.
What is that? I want to say The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Yeah, that was good.
I like that one.
Jennifer Carpenter was really good. Very physical.
Yeah. There was like certain weird aspects of it, especially when the boyfriend wakes up and sees her on the floor, just in his strange, contorted position. It was like that kind of freaked me out. I probably would have. I don't know what I would have done had I been in that room. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
What's up with that?
She was really good. Her performance, really. I mean, and I like the fact that it was a court procedural also.
Mm-hmm.
And you had a really
do the
good cast.
flashbacks and whatnot, and it still leads through your imagination. You're not actually seeing every little detail.
Yeah, Laura Linney, Campbell Scott, Tom Wilkinson. Really good people. I thought the exorcism scene itself was really good. They really tried to fire on all thrusters, and again, Jennifer Carpenter doing a really good job.
Mm-hmm.
Top ones outside, I got to say, and this isn't what you might think of in terms of a possession movie, but the Spanish film Wreck, which is just one of the greatest. It's maybe the best found film movie of all time. They did a Jennifer Carpenter remake called Quarantine, actually. The American version of it, but it's the story of a reporter who's sort of doing this puff piece on like what the fire department does at night, for like some 5-minute segment or something, and she is like spending the night with at the firehouse, and they get the call to this house, for an emergency call, not understanding that the apocalypse is starting in that apartment complex. It is unbelievable. So if you get, hold on, I think I have a copy. I got one around here somewhere. If you ever get it, here it is. Fantastic.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Fantastic movie. Fantastic. And then there's another one, I would argue, called The Last Exorcism, which is sort of about a sham preacher, who is going out and sort of huckstering people out of their money, because he thinks that exorcism is a sham, and actually walks into a real case of possession. And it's good. And the last 5 minutes of that movie, because a lot of movies, horror or any,
wasn't there another one like that? It had to do with like a couple doing that.
I don't know. That I don't know.
What
couple?
I kind of remember something to that effect. It was almost like trying to play the whole found footage bit, but I don't remember exactly what was going on in there. But then they come across a real possession or something.
So, I mean, some are better than others. There's only one original. I think we can probably start to wrap this up and conclude on that note. I think in agreement. It's funny. I only saw this in the theater once, and it was the 30th anniversary. And I went to a multiplex to see it on a Friday night, nighttime, like 8 p.m. Screening, 9 p.m. screening, whatever. And I remember a bunch of kids were in there at the time, because even back then I wasn't a kid 20 years ago. And they're laughing and giggling and bringing their popcorn and walking down the aisle, so on and so forth. And I remember probably a good 5 or 6 of them just ran out of, they didn't understand what they were going to see. It was obvious. And they literally ran out of the theater screaming and never came back. And, that was as big a testament to the quality of the story as you can get that 30 years later. It was still making unsuspecting people have that kind of visceral reaction that you just don't get. An honest, unfiltered reaction like that just doesn't happen nowadays. And so, what a film! What a film!
So, did you get to go to the 50th anniversary of the Exorcist?
I did not. I think it might have been playing low. It wasn't playing at the multiplex. I have to go a little farther to some of the. I think it was a Fathom Events thing or something like that. And I don't recall that I saw it. So no, I didn't get a chance to see it. I don't know that I would go again. I mean, we covered this is episode 202. So at 100 we did The Exorcist. With few exceptions, except running into new people like yourself, there's probably not that much more to be extracted out of it. You probably think that you understand about as much as you can, unless like you, who seem to specifically focus on that film, and it's
yeah, I know. I got to break away from it at some point. I mean, there's a few other things I want to cover. And then I'm going to probably move on to like Exorcist 2 and Exorcist 3. Finally. I also thought about reviewing some of the knockoffs from back in the 70s as well, especially
the Turkish
Shaitan. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's proper. I mean, it's almost shot for shot. But the funny thing is, it's a Catholic free film. It would have to be. It's like
coming from Turkey.
You're out coming out of Turkey. What are you supposed to pull off? It's like it's a Catholic free Exorcist. It comes in a can, right? Like a Coca-Cola. But some of the scenes, especially the what you would think the crucifix scene is. It's not a crucifix, obviously, but the position that she takes in this film, sitting upward, looks just like some of the test screens from the original.
Okay.
I'm like, was there somebody on set when this happened? Because it was just bizarre, It's like, and it's the only one that really has that moment where, like in Exorcist 3, where Karis tells Father Morning, "This time you're going to lose." Yeah. And that was like originally in the the novel, but you don't hear it in the film. They put that into the Turkish version. So it's kind of bizarre. And even was it Mark Commode brought it up? He said he thought that the people that made the Turkish version understood the first film better than a lot of these other people that do the sequels.
It's probably true. I mean, you could look at Browning's Dracula, with Lugosi. And then, on the set during the day, and then at night, the Spanish crew came in and filmed the exact same movie.
That was pretty cool.
And then, if you look at it, you could argue it's the better movie. It's got a little more, it's got Spanish flavor to it, whereas, the other guys are coming off this sort of, I'm just learning to be a voice actor off the silent era. So, I've got these over-the-top performances, except for Lugosi, who steals every scene because, he's clearly the alpha there. But you look at that Spanish film, and it's better, at least in terms of the supporting cast.
Is that available on physical media? The Spanish?
Yes, it is. I have, where is it? Wolfman, Frankenstein, Creature. Maybe it's in the other room, but I have all of the legacy. Well, I have the legacy collections for all the Universal monsters. So here's the Mummy, for example. And it comes with like Mummy's Hand, Mummy's Tomb. So if you get and it's like $20. Any of these are $20. If you get these, it will come with at least 4 other Universal monsters for that particular time frame. You'll get the Spanish version. You'll get Chaney Jr. and Son of Dracula. I think you get the House of Dracula with John Carradine, which is actually a really good film with Lon Chaney. He actually plays Lawrence Talbot in that, sort of like a crossover with Dracula and the Wolfman. In a non-Abbott and Costello kind of way. But if you pick up those legacy collections, they've got copies Any other versions that you want. The Spanish version is on there, and it's worth watching. It's worth watching. And unlike many of the, well, I mean, at the time that this was made, there's some documentaries on the Spanish version where the woman who plays Mina is still alive, and she talks about experiences on the set and so on and so forth. So yeah, sometimes different ethnicities take at it in a different way. Add something.
I'm going to jump back on the possession films here for a minute.
Yeah, sure.
The Exorcism of God, I think that's what it was called. Did that come out last year or this year?
That's the first I've heard of it. The Exorcism of God. Okay,
I think that's what it was called.
Hold on, I'm on IMDb.
I might have to look it up.
Hold on. Sounds a little pretentious. No, 2021.
Oh, it was 2021. I don't know why it seemed like it was like last year.
And a Mexican priest working in Mexico is possessed during an exorcism and ends up committing a terrible act 18 years later. The consequences of his sin come back to haunt him, unleashing the greatest battle within. It's first I've heard of it. Oh, sorry
new video.
Sorry about that. Yeah, well, that's enough of that. No, yeah, okay. So the Exorcism of God. Okay. And you saw this?
No. Okay. No, I pretty much kind of gave up on a lot of the possession films after a while. It was like suddenly we started getting all these possession films. And I kind of focused on this one more so. I've been, like I said, I've been trying to break away from it so I can actually move into different territory a little bit. But yeah,
there was one. Oh yeah, this was it. This was really fucking good. And this is we can break off here. I don't want to take up your whole day.
No, that's fine.
With my blather. Beelzebub, Mexican horror film, possession film.
Is it a possession film?
Yes, it is a possession film.
Okay.
Yes. It's pretty. It goes for it. It goes for it. It's not perfect, but it goes for it. So,
what's the year on that?
2017.
Oh, okay.
2017. So I think it's one of those ones you can find on Shudder. Shudder does a lot of indie horror, that kind of thing. If you get a chance, check it out. I saw it once. I haven't watched it again. Yeah, it's pretty fucking good. Pretty fucking.
I'll have to look for that one.
All right. Is there anything that we have not discussed that you would like to address? Any points that you didn't get a chance to make or anything like that?
Always got something. Always got something. Especially when it comes to Believer. It's like
yeah.
The beginning seemed like it was starting off pretty good, and then all of a sudden things got rushed, and to me it got choppy. It's like they're trying to cram all this other stuff into instead of spacing it out. I thought when they were talking about having a trilogy, you'd have like the story kind of allow it some breathing room across 3 films.
That's what I thought too. And then
maybe it does. I don't really understand how they're going about that. And
I don't see how. I don't see that there are any worthwhile characters left over to bring back from the first movie. Who, and the last 30 seconds, I'm just really, you're really going to do that? Like, really? It was pointless. It rendered it completely pointless. The movie was so bad. By the time you got to that last minute, you're just like, that is completely pointless now. I don't see where you go from this.
I can't see bringing Linda Blair into the next one. To me, it was kind of like, okay, here's your closure. Now we're done with Chris and Reagan. That's the impression I got. And then we're going to move on. Kind of like what they did with the first season of the Exorcist show.
Series,
they kind of jumped on him, and I kept getting the impression whatever that water was they were dumping in the sewer, is that where they're going to take off from?
I don't know. I would have been content if they had just left the series and left it at that. There's a point, there's a question that I feel was never asked, but it should be: is this necessary? And I just find all of this unnecessary. If you want to make a possession movie, make a possession movie, but right. Don't do this. There's nothing left to extract, unless you're just going to get like top tier people, like you're going to bring Del Toro in, or
that would have been good.
Something. You'd have to bring somebody in. I mean, if you look at some of those test shots that he was doing from Lovecraft. When he was going to do At the Mountains of Madness. You're just like, oh my God, that's gorgeous. Like, how are you doing that? Hold on a second.
I thought that was my phone.
No, it's me. How are you doing that? That is just absolutely beautiful. And that someone is just a fanboy, and an obsessive fanboy, rather than somebody who just seems a little entitled. And I think, those other movies made about a couple $100 million, the Halloween films, and he just thought, I'm the shit, and he didn't understand anything. And it's just, now I don't want to see anything else. I don't want to see it. I'm not curious. I'm not interested. There's no point. There's no point. So.
There were little things that bothered me about Believer, especially with the beds. You had the wrist straps and whatnot, and they didn't use them. Why is the Angela character running around, loose in this room? I figured, what they figure it's fine. She's got wrist straps, and I've never seen them use it throughout the whole film. They did the strap across, but never the wrist straps. Was there a reason for that?
Yeah, this isn't
a trigger for someone.
This isn't a child with conduct disorder. This,
yeah, especially one that's wrecked a house.
Yeah.
We only get to see the aftermath. We don't see her actually do that. Also, another thing I brought up was the whole idea of sustenance. In the first one, at least she had like the feeding tube. How are these girls eating?
It's just bad.
Is it the demon just provides? Is that how that works?
I think I remember somebody, the Disc Father on Twitter, X, whatever you call it, saw a test screening in April, and he said it was bad. He's like, thin plot, weak, bloated. He goes, they seriously need to. Now, I don't know if maybe it would have been better if the strikes hadn't happened and they just kicked the can down a year and, got some rewrites in there to spruce this up. But he must have felt good about it and said, hey, we're just going to go for it. Good to go. And here we are. But hey, you know what? Who the fuck, $107 million, $107 million. So, if you want to be cynical, it makes you wonder
if the studio didn't buy any tickets for themselves to bring those box office numbers up.
It's entirely possible, but something? 3 weeks?
Right.
3 weeks? No, I could see it.
Because, I was asking Mike, I asked about how many people were in his theater, and he had less than I did.
I had about 10. But it was 5:00 on a Thursday. But
I was on a weekend.
Okay. Matinee or an evening?
It was a matinee because we couldn't do an evening at the time. I had my granddaughter.
Okay.
So
who knows? I've heard about that before. They're buying their own tickets to try to seem to boost sales. But I think last week it was at 86 million. And I asked my friend James, I'm like, if this goes over 100 million, is that a success? And I just looked now a week later, and they've passed 100 million. So who knows? Horror fans.
Where they're going to go from that, though.
Here's the thing: though, horror fans will consume anything.
Sure.
Horror fans will fucking consume it proudly. The more shit you pile on their sandwich, the more they're happy to chew. Get an extra one in there, get an extra one.
Hot hero sandwich.
That's it. Put it in there, buddy. And let's spread it around. So I mean that is one, and that was one of the arguments that I made, was that the horror community will carry this over into the land of profit, because if Terrifier can make $100 million, then
that's probably what they figured. Just what you're saying there.
Yeah, this isn't that horror fans don't like movies with a story, which is probably why Nefarious, wasn't a big hit. And I've had horror people tell me, oh my God, I didn't get it, and I'm like, okay, we've known each other for 3 years now. I understand why.
After 20 minutes of trailers in the beginning of it, and when they showed the Five Nights at Freddy's, I was like sitting there going, God, I think I'd rather see that than this one.
Now that will go on to be critically praised by the horror community, and it'll just be why.
And then we'll finally get those costumes out from Spirit of Halloween, right, or something like that.
And then Scream will, the new Scream movie, or Saw 10. These are the ones that are, these are the ones that they ingest endlessly, and just get out of their way, because you're not going to stop them.
Which I think it's kind of weird. I think what was it, last year? Going to Spirit of Halloween store, it seemed like they were behind when it came to the Halloween costumes. Like the Michael Myers stuff. At least the one that we have. It's like you would think after having the movies come out, they'd have more of the Michael Myers stuff come out, and they didn't.
Well, wasn't the whole horror community like in an uproar because they finally figured out that the third movie sucked? I'm like, I could have told you that by the fucking first movie. The first movie sucked.
They could have celebrated Michael Myers in whatever year they wanted to do that. Like, even make their own fanfic.
Like, who the fuck are you people? Like, you couldn't figure out that the movie in '81's kind of sucks. It took them 40 years. So they're their own. They're their own organization out there. So the things that I cover usually don't get talked about too much, and I enjoy that because I can actually have some substantive conversation. But yeah,
right.
All right. I think we are at the point where I'm going to wrap this up here. We've been going for about 2 hours now. I didn't anticipate talking quite this much, but I've enjoyed it. Considering we just met 2 minutes before we went on the stream.
Yeah.
That this kind of worked out okay. It was good to recognize a little gray hair. So we'll probably go back a little ways to some films that and some eras. And some perspectives that we can relate to. So yeah,
right.
That was good. And I appreciate you taking the time out there to shoot the shit with me. If you ever, I would love one time to discuss Dominion. Maybe we could do something like that, because I think I took a 3-hour bus from I'm in the Atlantic City area in New Jersey, and took a bus into New York City because it was only playing in LA and New York when that dropped. And I thought Schrader understood what he was trying to do. I think it failed, but I think he understood what he was trying to do with the concept of guilt, and wanting to undo your guilt, and sort of falling, prey to that. And I appreciated that he told Warner Brothers to go fuck themselves when they told him to refilm the whole thing. And then they ended up hiring Rennie Harlan, who gave us another piece of crap, and then they ended up releasing his movie anyway. So, but maybe we could get together with that, and I'd appreciate
we could do that. I'm hoping to get Mike Blatty on for a live Q&A. Hopefully after this one video that I'm trying to get out.
Okay.
It pretty much deals with Father Karras's tape that he makes of the reversed. Something came up on in my YouTube feed, and it had to do with Blatty being on David Letterman, and so I was kind of curious if this had to do if this is where he came up with this whole concept on the tape being slightly different every time he played it.
Oh, that would be fucking interesting.
Because awesome. He had to actually happen, and if you really think about it, how much of Blatty is in the Karras character, from his mom dying it's basically him.
Yeah,
you know, it's
his struggle to find faith.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's his struggle to find faith.
Yeah,
and ultimately deciding
here
that
it
there
is.
is
He's
a God.
put it focused into the actual character, and a lot of things like in the novel, I don't think a lot of people realize the books that are called out in the novel are real books.
Oh yeah,
that he researched from. Even that book Satan, where I don't know how familiar you are with the novel, but there's a moment when after he's first seeing Reagan and he goes back and he's researching all he can on exorcism back in his room. He's staying up, rubbing his eyes because he's so tired, and he looks over and there's an image on one of the pages of a demon, and he looks down and it reads Pazuzu on the bottom. And that's really in the book. It's really in the book. It's this one here.
Listen,
right here.
Okay.
This book here. That's the book he was looking at.
Oh, okay.
Here's the page he was looking at here.
Yeah, because Pazuzu is a real demon. Yeah, an Assyrian.
It was an actual book. So I try to collect those and see what Blatty was actually looking into.
Okay. Listen, I hate to cut this off, but I have a dog that's about to have an accident. So...
Oh, sure.
Listen,
that's fine.
Dude, when you're about to set that up for the Q&A, send me a DM.
Yep. Oh, I
will. I'd love to be there and hit the notification, so it's a reminder, because I'm not a young man anymore, and I've got that Sometimers. It's not Alzheimer's, but it's
Sometimers. I got Sometimers.
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah, I got that really bad too.
So
listen,
man,
it's become too often now.
Yeah. I write everything. I try to write everything down, or Google Calendar as much as I can, and it brings the reminder up 30 minutes early. Listen, this was a pleasure, man. It was a pleasure to talk to you.
It was great.
A pleasure to meet you. My thanks to Baron Von D from Exorcist Reviews. Go check out his channel. I'm going to put a link there in the description. We will be back on Tuesday as we wrap up our Halloween theme of witchcraft. We're going to be looking at one that my buddy Rod picked out, but it's a pretty gnarly movie. Rob Zombie's The Lords of Salem.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to wrap it up on Wednesday with the final movie, which is because I hate Argento films, the Amazon original remake or original film of Suspiria. So I love all things Tilda Swinton. I just think she's fucking glamorous and regal. And so I'll watch anything she's in. So we'll be back on Tuesday and Wednesday night. My thanks to Baron Von D.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. Let's do it again soon.
Yeah.
And we'll see you all in the next video. All right. Have a good one, everybody. Good night.
All right.